Anyone recognize this song? This song is from one of the most famous Korean dramas of all time, called Dae Jang Geum, or in English, Jewel in the Palace. So what will today's episode be about? I just gave it away, lol. No point putting any cliffhangers here. G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of the Bamboo History Podcast. Today's episode will be a second part of a two-part series on famous female East Asian doctors. Last week, we talked about Tan Yunxian, the Ming Dynasty physician who learnt the art of medicine from her grandparents against her parents' will to become a well-renowned physician who treated people from all walks of life. This week, we will be talking about an ancient Korean physician who I dare say is more famous than Tan Yunxian because of the famous Korean drama TV show Dae Jang Geum. Yes, this week we will be talking about the famous Dae Jang Geum, but I will be talking about the story of the real-life Jang Geum, not the fictional one depicted in the K-drama. So, if you're listening to this episode and you're thinking, hang on, something's not right. How come you're not talking about Lady Choi or Min Jong-ho? And I get it. Compared to the Korean drama, the real Jang Geum may seem a lot more underwhelming, but it is still definitely worth going into. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's episode. Before I begin this episode, however, I just wanted to say, as a disclaimer, I'm not a native Korean speaker, so if I am mispronouncing any Korean words in this episode, please bear that in mind, and I apologize in advance if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Thank you all. Jang Geum, spelled Janggeum, was a famous female physician from Joseon Korea in the 1500s, and she lived around the same time as Tan Yunxian did in the neighboring Chinese Ming Dynasty. In the Korean drama Dae Jang Geum, Jewel in the Palace, and spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched the show yet, the show dramatizes the life of Jang Geum, who is orphaned at a young age and trains to be a chef inside the imperial palace to find the people who killed her parents and get revenge on them. Eventually, she develops an interest in medicine and becomes the country's most renowned physician, and she is anointed the title of Dae Jang Geum by the King Jungjong of Joseon. In reality, we actually don't know too much about Jang Geum's personal life or her early life as a child. The TV show says that her father was a former palace guard and that her mother was a former imperial palace chef. But there are no records of the real Jang Geum and her early life that suggests that this is true. So, we will need to use what we know about female physicians during the Joseon period to try and ascertain what the early life of Jang Geum could have been like. You see, female physicians during the Joseon dynasty of Korea were known as uinyeo, spelt uinyeo. Joseon Korea was very hierarchical at the time and had a caste system influenced by Neo-Confucianist ideals. The caste system, ranking from top to bottom, were as follows. The Yangbun, which were the aristocrats at the top. Then it was the Jungin, or the middle class. Then it was the Sangmin, or the commoners, and then lastly, the Jeonmin, the lowest of the lot, and they were the outcasts of society. The Joseon dynasty was very conservative at the time, and there was a social taboo of women receiving medical treatment from male physicians, stemming from an idea of sex segregation called uinyeo, spelled Naeoe. I'm sure I mispronounced that, so if anyone can correct me on that, let me know. Anyway, with this idea of neo, where physical contact between the two sexes especially among strangers, was heavily frowned upon. Hence, in the year 1406, in the early Joseon period, the uinyeo system was created to train young women into becoming physicians so that they could treat female patients. In modern times, doctors and physicians are held with great esteem. You must have been very well educated to have become a doctor. But uinyeo in the Joseon dynasty mainly came from the lowest caste, the chonmin, and the very first uinyeo were palace maids trained in medical knowledge. So why did the female physicians come from such low depths of society? Well, it was because the work of an uinyeo, unlike that of male physicians, also involved spending time with the patients in addition to treatment. And because they had to spend time with them, this would involve tasks such as disposing feces, and all that, which was a type of work that was undesirable for women in higher castes. Furthermore, King Yeonsan-gun, the king that preceded King Jungjong, was known for inviting uinyeo to parties and using them as sex slaves. So, there was also a stigma that uinyeo were also prostitutes, and hence it wasn't a glamorous job for women in higher castes to take. Changgum was most likely from the chonmin, the lowest caste, and lived as an outcast away from society in ghettos and was raised in poverty. Becoming an uinyeo, for many other young girls of the lowest caste, was a way out of this destitute lifestyle, as it meant moving away from their ghetto homes and getting an education. Hence, Janggum most likely had a similar motivation to become a physician. In the TV show Dae Jang Geum, Changgum is exiled to Jeju Island after a purge, and on the island she begins to learn the craft of medicine before eventually making her way back to the palace as an uinyeo. A scene that I like in this TV show is that a group of Japanese pirates invade the island and take everyone hostage because they need someone to treat their chief. Changgum, who is just training at the time, volunteers and treats the Japanese pirate chief before the people are rescued by soldiers led by her lover, Min Jong-ho. In reality, the part where Changgum goes to Jeju Island and treats a Japanese pirate chief is not recorded in history, and most likely not true. Although, who knows, maybe she did take a trip there on a holiday? I hear Jeju Island is a good holiday destination these days, so who knows? Most of the historical records we have of Changgum are from the Joseon Wangjo Silok, or the Annals of the Joseon Dynasty in English, which is a historical text that records the events of the Joseon Dynasty. The first records of Changgum date to the year 1515, during the 9th year of the reign of King Jungjong, spelled Jungjong. The events recorded unfolded as follows. King Jungjong's wife, Queen Jangyong, gave birth to his son, who was the later King Ingjong, but the queen suffered from complications and died after the birth. Some of the court officers asked the king to punish the uinyeo responsible for the delivery of the baby, and that included Janggum, because they weren't able to prevent the queen from dying. However, King Jungjong thinks this is ludicrous and comments that even though the queen died, Janggum had ensured that the baby survived. Hence, the king decided not to punish nor reward Janggum and the other uinyeo for the delivery process. It is evident that by this stage, Janggum, in the year 1515, was an able physician as she was entrusted to deliver the baby of the queen. As this event happened in the year 1515, it's safe to assume that Janggum was most likely born towards the end of the 1400s, or at the turn of the century, and she would have had to been an able physician to treat the queen. In the following years, it looks like Janggum rose up the ranks rapidly because of her superior medical skills. For example, in the year 1522, Jang Geum was rewarded 10 sacks of rice and 10 sacks of beans for the treatment of the Queen Mother, Jungjong's mum. By the year 1525, Jungjong was referring to Jang Geum as Dae Jang Geum, Dae meaning great, and it was a title bestowed to Jang Geum out of respect for her skills and also an elevation of her status as the best uinyeo of Joseon, and to the point that she was allowed to treat the king. The last records in the Joseon Wangjo Silok, Annals of the Joseon Dynasty, are from the year 1544, that is, records of Jang Geum. The records state that King Jungjong was suffering from constipation, and that when he recovered, Jang Geum visited him to see that if he was feeling better, to which he said that he was fine and that he was able to take a dump. This entry was recorded on the 13th of November 1544. After this last record of Jang Geum, Jungjong passed away within a month's time. The Dae Jang Geum TV show is accurate with this last recording to an extent, where in the TV show, Jang Geum could not prevent the king from dying from a constipation-related illness. Should have eaten more fibre, I guess. There is only one other mention of Jang Geum besides the Joseon Wangjo Silok, Annals of the Joseon Dynasty, and that is from the Yi Dynasty Medical Officer Journal. In this journal, it records that in the 18th year of Jungjong's reign, which would be around 1524 or 1525, Jang Geum was bestowed the title of Dae and was able to be referred as Dae Jang Geum. This validates the records in the Joseon Wangjo Silok, and the record further states that her origins are unknown, which most likely is because she was from the lowest caste and hence no one would have bothered to record her early life. And the record also states that she was the first uinyeo female physician to treat the king. Extending beyond the records of the Joseon Wangjo Silok and the Yi Dynasty Medical Officer Journal, many people have also speculated that the relationship between Jang Geum and Junjong extended beyond that of a doctor-patient relationship, and that they were perhaps an item. Ooh, drama! I mean, the Korean drama TV show Dae Jang Geum definitely explored this, with the king in the TV show having a crush on Jang Geum, but Jang Geum didn't reciprocate because of her love for Min Jong-ho. Now, the fact that Junjong and Jang Geum were an item is not a wild possibility, and I'll tell you why. Firstly, during Junjong's reign, he often invited the uinyeo to parties where they would entertain the guests. Junjong wasn't a savage like his predecessor Yeonsang-gun, and the uinyeo weren't forced to do sexual acts, but they did keep the guests company in these parties, and acted kind of like hostesses, like the girls in the hostess bars in Japan. Hence, uinyeo like Jang Geum were more than just physicians in the eyes of the king. As I mentioned earlier, uinyeo were also expected to spend time with their patients in addition to merely treating them. So it could be that Junjong and Jang Geum developed a relationship whilst they spent time with each other. Also, there may have been other uinyeo who were also really good with medicine like Jang Geum, but they may not have been given the title Dae because perhaps Junjong personally favoured Jang Geum over the others. This isn't verified, but this could definitely be a possibility. Regardless, it is evident that Jang Geum must have been a very capable medical practitioner, as ordinary uinyeo would only have taken care of the commoners and not the bloody king and queen. The fact that she was the first female physician to care for the king is a huge achievement and worthy of being recorded and talked about for many years to come. Final thoughts? We don't know what happened to Jang Geum after Junjong's death, as she vanishes from historical records. In the K-drama, Jang Geum and her husband Min Jong-ho escape and hide out into the mountains after Junjong's death, as they are scared of potential retribution from political enemies. Eventually, Junjong's empress and now Empress Dowager, Moonjong, becomes regent to the new emperor and invites Jang Geum and Min Jong-ho back to the palace and then reinstates their titles. The last scene of the K-drama shows Jang Geum delivering a baby using caesarean section for the first time in history. I want to believe that Jang Geum had a happy ending like the one on TV, but I think in real life, Jang Geum most likely fell from grace. A person of that big of a title of Dae cannot simply vanish from historical records. At the very least, she was not given the same responsibilities of treating the new king like she could with Junjong. I think intuitively, as we can see, if you look at the history records, it seems that Jang Geum got onto the history records because she was treating the king and other members of the royal family like the queen. If Jang Geum no longer appears after Junjong's death, at the very least, it's because she's been stripped of her responsibilities to treat the royal family, and probably spent the rest of her life treating people of lesser importance, hence why she's not recorded in the history books. Of course, the other possibility is she could have died or been executed, but let's hope for her sake that didn't happen after the king Junjong died. Both Tan Yunxian and Jang Geum served and can serve as inspiration to women wanting to make it into an industry where male representation is high, and women are frowned upon for entering said industry. Both women struggled in their early life, Tan Yunxian with family pressure and Jang Geum with caste discrimination, only for both to overcome these challenges imposed by society and to rise to the top as physicians well respected and admired, even to this day. From Tan Yunxian, we can gain insight into the experiences of a female physician at a grassroots level, whereas from Jang Geum, we can gain insight into the experience of a female physician at the top levels of society. So yeah, that's it. That's the end of the story of Jang Geum, and the end to the two-part series on the famous East Asian female doctors. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you enjoyed this two-part series talking about Tan Yunxian in part 1 and Jang Geum in part 2. Remember, as always, before you leave, don't forget to subscribe to my podcast if you haven't already. Leave a comment, preferably a good one, if you liked this episode or any other episodes. Reach out to me for any topic suggestions or general comments, and visit my website. I'll leave all those details in the description box below. Oh, getting a bit sick now. Maybe I should go see, a doctor or a uinyeo. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening, and I'll see you all next time on the Bamboo History Podcast. Bye for now.